In this great country, we have many pros and we have many cons. One of the cons being the lack of funding in our school systems. The United States is underfunding its K-12 public schools by nearly 150 billion annually, according to the Century Foundation, independent that think tank 2020, one of the oldest public policy research institutions in the country. With that in mind, we're blocking approximately 30 million school children from the resources needed to succeed in the classroom. With that in mind, and from the numbers, we see an issue with class division, specifically race. White schools, majority of them are getting the funding needed. Where schools of minorities aren't even getting close to funding needed. But that could be location. Go more detail would be property taxes. Depending on where you live in the US, pay a certain amount of property taxes in that given area, and you'll see a difference in your community with the more property taxes you pay. So with that, we see about 8% of black students in good schools and about 13% of Latin students in good schools. They're just not getting the help and aid needed. Just completely underfunded schools and the programs involved with them. With that, we need improvement on the school programs, help with college aid, and daycare for students who want to pursue their future so they can, not the hassle of knowing where my child will be taken care of. Going coincide with to go with that would be many poor states. One being Mississippi. One of the states hit the hardest with poverty. Say about a 20% poverty rate. And with that, we're seeing about 18% of the youth ages 18 and 24 without high school degrees who are not in school or working in 2018. We're in Talk Poverty 2020. We just have people idle, just pretty much not doing anything. Just sitting at home, not bringing in anything, or not taking anything. I mean, it's just a sad situation. A state next to Mississippi is Louisiana, with about a 19% poverty rate. Has many poor schools in that state. We're seeing about a 7,000 funding gap average between students, white to black. Completely race-based, unfortunately. And with that just comes the funding. There's just no money to be given to these schools. The money would come from property taxes, and with that, like I said before, comes the income differences. When more people are making more money, they can charge more for tax in that given area. If there's not a lot of people making money, they just can't do it. Simple as that. And we see with that social ignorance, with not getting help in those given areas, that can produce an infrastructure to build the next great generation. With that in mind, about 96% of children attending districts with majority Latin student populations are in districts that have funding gaps, according to the Century Foundation once again. Why, we may ask? So rule makers, politicians just out of touch, have different ethics, the age gap is just great, and they just aren't affected by it, them or their families at this point. And also, it'll just be another issue to regulate. It's hard to regulate, for one, and how would you get this income? That being legalize sports gambling across the country. Worked so far in 14 states, New Jersey being included. 350 million made in 2020. Less than 1% of the state budget, but it will increase with time. The latest state with legalization of online sports gambling was Michigan, which in their bill stated that school aid would be included, first responder funds would be included, and compulsive gambling funds would be included for people that need help. This will help other states 1,000%, with the southern states being the main focus. It will create a foundation, and we know that it can start building proper education for these students and what they need. According to an Oxford University report, found that the legalization of sports betting would contribute as much as $14 billion to the U.S. GDP annually, according to Patrick Hoff Foundation for Economic Education 2018. So with that in mind, will it affect the integrity of sports? Absolutely not. I think the sports will stay the same. Tim Donahue was removed from officiating NBA games for gambling and making questionable calls, according to Jeff Townsend, Bleacher Report 2008, and was sentenced to a 15-month prison sentence. With popularity increase, there'll be more revenue for schools, and this could be looked at as an alternative vice for drinking, nicotine habits, where programs could be set in stone for school foundations. And we have to work on these low-income school districts. They just need help. And that could come with online sports gambling. Helping them will create a foundation for future generations, and that will increase income for all over, where everyone has productive minds.